Today, when I began the second leg of my Big Bend adventure, I turned 49 years old. My day started quite a bit later than I expected because I had an unusual experience. However, after that experience, I was able to take on this walk, which I turned into an equally unusual challenge. Instead of a 2-mile round trip walk to a specific point and back, my curiosities about a certain location stretched this walk into an over 5-mile walk. Along the way, I found a few signs of life, but once again, it was the external world that intruded upon this escape. Sometimes I wonder if I'm triggering specific ground sensors in the Big Bend National Park, because oftentimes I'll have a plane of some sort fly over me not too long after I really get into the thick of it. I feel this way because more and more frequently now I'm running into, well, I should say I'm carefully walking into areas where it looks like former civilizations have definitely been treading. If you remember that large stone that we found earlier in the wash, that was part of this wall. On this type of wild walk that I love to go on, I normally find signs of life, if not the life itself, but also I find signs of former life, like this grinding surface found right next to the grinding stone that was used with this by a little alcove. And it also seemed like everywhere on the ground there were stone chippings from the past. Sometimes I like to zoom in on these little hidey holes to see if there were any critters hiding.
Well, here I am. I made it. I'm 49 years old and I made it up to here, wherever here is. I just wanted to get someplace that I haven't been and that I can make it back from by nightfall.
The amazing variety of cactus is hard to overlook. In fact, it's one of the reasons I'm extra attentive when I'm on these walks. Despite this, a low-hanging thorn in a thorn bush in just the right amount of shade stuck me really good. Thankfully, that happened during the last third of a mile of my outing, and so I was able to hop into the car and do what I wanted to, which was try to make it back to my campground at a reasonable hour. The nights are dark here, especially on a moonless night, and they can be a little challenging when you have too many people on these roadways, especially after hours. The roadways can even be challenging during normal hours when there are too many people around. My original plan was to visit the hot springs after waking up early. After waking up at 6 in the morning with temperatures in the 30s, I found that I was unable to open my vehicle because the battery had died in the key fob. Anyone familiar with the Big Bend region knows that something like this can be disastrous, but I was lucky. It turns out that the Cottonwood store in Studi Butte happened to have the exact battery that I needed for my key fob. I also wanted to get a few more snacks and some ice to put in the cooler because the ice that I had initially had already turned to just cold water. So what I'm saying is that prior to any of the video footage that you're seeing right now, I had a circumstance where I was lucky that my car battery worked one final time, my car fob battery, I should say, and let me into the vehicle. And then from that point in time, all morning until almost midday, I got myself back out to the hot springs, which was what I wanted to do initially on this particular day, only to find that the road to the hot springs is closed today for some reason, like several of the roads in the park. It's quite a distance from the pavement to the hot springs. I can hardly believe that people stopped and actually decided to walk all the way. I'm recording all the narration from my campsite, so the honk that you heard in the last clip when the truck went by, that was actually someone arming their car alarm right here in the campground. In this case, I was bypassing the Ross Maxwell scenic view. There were way too many people at night here for me to really enjoy the experience. So I went to another secret area that I like to go to at night, where we would be more likely to have the sky all to ourselves. All right, I'm glad that you can see some of the landscape at least. I don't know how I show up on this, but I can see a satellite overhead or a super way up in the sky airliner. Anyway, today did not go as I had planned. Things went wrong from the start. I went to go and get in my vehicle, and I couldn't get in my vehicle because the key fob battery had died, and the temperatures were in the 30s, which probably added to the fact as to why I couldn't use my fob. On a Hail Mary, I went back to the door and reached for it and hoped that it would trigger the opening, and sure enough, it did. It's like maybe having the fob in my pocket for maybe a minute or three. I'm trying to think of how long it was, but whatever the case was, for that amount of time, there was just enough juice that was available for me to open the doors. I needed to take care of that because I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I don't know if you can see this. At this point, I'm going to just show you how remote and isolated I am in this well-traveled place. Imagine being in a place like this and suddenly not being able to open your car or start it suddenly. Pay particular attention to the sounds of the night. All right, so I don't know. I probably just show up as a silhouette in the frame. I'm not sure. What I am sure of is that this place is powerful. And for me, I needed some powerful healing. We're in a circumstance where, I might have had a birthday here. I might have had several birthdays here, as a matter of fact, if you check the footage on this channel. But that doesn't mean that I'm coming out here and celebrating all day long, where it's just nonstop typical activities. And I think that many of us need that healing and that disconnect, but it's not just the people who are voicing it out. A lot of us need to get back to our inner child and really pay attention to what one another is saying. So for some people who, if I said, hey, I didn't even have dinner today on my birthday, people would be like, oh my, goodness. And it would be almost humorous to me, to see how agitated someone becomes over that, because the thing is, I wound up exactly where I needed to be at exactly every point in time. And I worked through what really was one of the most innocuous ways to have a day go, because as you've seen in this video, I mean, I could have been snake bit. Instead, I only got thorn bit. And so with my key fob working, and because my plans had changed so significantly, River Road, even with the areas being closed that were closed, I decided to finish my birthday strong by doing one of the other things that I like to do, and that's to go all the way to the end of a road and then turn back to see what I see. And in this particular case, I can't help but noticing that this hare is the only rabbit that I've seen in the park so far after over a week. We used to be able to see skunks, javelina, and so many other animals on the road. Even the kangaroo mice and other rodents that normally were common are very uncommon. They're uncommon enough that I'm slowing down just to show you one. I apologize to my sensitive viewers, but if I saw a live one, I would have included it in this video. I was up early chasing sunrise on the following cold morning. The following day, the kangaroo mouse was still on the road. The Santa Elena Canyon at sunrise is such a majestic sight. I realize that some of the story that I've been telling about this place has taken a dark turn, in that I'm talking about the extreme decline in wildlife, vegetation, and I only have to glance around just for a little while in any of these places to find other things. I kind of get to the point where I wish that our environmental impact could be more easily recognized and tended to, and that maybe from the very beginning, the distribution sources, the corporate leaders could find ways to reincorporate the packaging that they're using and spending so heavily on anyway, and have it go right back to where it's being created, so that inevitably the resources return to their calling. You probably can't hear it, but while I'm staring at the canyon over here, I can hear some coyotes way off in the distance calling to the sunrise. That's pretty cool, but it's still very quiet. I'm overlooking countless trees. I believe I can count 3 birds. In last night's portion, I showed the kangaroo mouse and the rabbit. The rabbit was gone, but the kangaroo mouse was still there, as you saw in the video clips. In the past, there would be nothing left by the next day because there would be so many things that were tending to this ecosystem. But I did hear some bats on this side, and obviously there are some corresponding insects. I hear a raven right now, but gone are the mornings of seeing the kestrels and hawks, golden eagles, vultures circling these winds to find things, even like roadkill, because even the roadkill is somewhat uncommon now, and it has been for a while. It's been uncommon enough that entire ecosystems are changing in these areas. And so when I try to talk about the things I talk about, when I'm met with ridicule and with people telling me that it's no fun to hang out with me, and when I find that I'm not being invited to certain things, it really doesn't matter. It makes me feel like maybe we're all able to make these recognitions, but maybe we're all surrounding ourselves by a whole lot of enablers that allow us to continue in the directions that we've been proceeding in, kind of carelessly. That's just how I feel. I'd already packed up my structure before sunrise, before seeing the structures that we saw during this video recording, and before several of the other things that we've experienced. So I was basically backtracking to the Santa Elena Canyon side and then back out as I tell this side of the second leg of my journey farewell. I wanted to show everyone what was left of the rabbit from the night before. And as I was doing that, I heard a group of coyotes calling out from over the hillside on the other side of the road. I apologize if any of this content seems graphic or crude. In this particular case, I believe I'm showing off how quiet and peaceful this area is in terms of even allowing us to study the signs of life even after struggles, such as what you just saw played out on the pavement. Now try to listen carefully for the coyotes that I'm hearing. In the not too distant past, it would have been near to impossible to walk on these areas. Here I'm showing you some of the tiny and beautiful vegetation that's still surviving on top of these hills in these extreme conditions. Speaking of extreme conditions, I saw a military vehicle parked up on this hill. They were parked right alongside a border patrol vehicle. So I guess both are policing the areas together. Either way, I wonder if this is why so many of the park roads are closed right now. Just for the record, I've seen rainbows every day since I've been in the park. Also, check it out, a new bear crossing sign. Also, a raven. The days in the park are hardly ever this clear. The weather is always different in one way or another. And after spending hours and hours scanning the horizon and all of the hills in between with binoculars or just with my eyes, I basically didn't see hardly anything stirring, not like we would have seen in the past. Just as an example, here's something that sticks out like a sore thumb if you're looking for signs of life. See if you can identify this next item. To me, it looks a little bit like DoorDash. It's not even noon and the traffic is a little bit like a freeway out there, so I didn't stop for that DoorDash delivery. Check out this bee. So as I was sitting here scanning for wildlife, this happened. This is something that happens so frequently, and I feel like maybe I'm the only one who gets out of the vehicle and tries to say anything to the offenders. Every one of them claims to not know that flying drones in the national park is an offense. What law is the most common question I hear after I advise someone that they're breaking the law. The wildlife that I was watching is long gone. It was scared off the moment that drone took flight. Otherwise, I would have shared something different with you, something that you haven't seen in a while. Neither had I. My thoughts are that with or without government funding, some of these parks are definitely not being policed in ways that are meaningful. Or maybe it's just that nobody cares about anything anyone is doing anymore, unless it impacts them directly. What if it impacts a third party, like wildlife, like the things that you might not have been paying attention to, even though we live in their habitat? You're such a cool arrow, flying pretty high overhead. I wish you got to know me. Ready on your mark, we're not set. I wish I could have told you, 'cause maybe then there'd be no regret. I wish you said goodbye, and where did all the good times go? You're such a cool arrow, flying pretty high overhead. I wish you got to know me. Ready on your mark, we're not set. I wish I could have seen you, 'cause maybe we'd have talked once again. I wish you said goodbye, and where did all the good times go? You're such a cool arrow, flying pretty high overhead. I wish I got to know you. Ready on your mark, we're not set. I wish I could have heard you, instead of just the voice in my head. I wish you said goodbye, and where did all the good times go? I'm so excited. The site that I'm in, that I'm going to be in for some time now, it's pretty amazing. It's got just the right amount of shade. It's got some things that I can use for my training. I'll give you more insight into the location in the third clip, but for right now, I just wanted to call this second leg finalized, and we'll start capturing content, hopefully creating it with a different approach, different attitude, and either way, it'll definitely have some different content. And so I hope you're sticking around for part 3, and there again might be a part 4, and that is yet to be determined. So stay tuned, and thanks again for subscribing. Until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.